Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And what lovely music there we had to bring us in. Very relaxing. Hopefully it's going to be a relaxing evening. So you're very welcome and thanks for tuning in. So this is our Mash.ie Back to School webinar. We did it last year, so we're going to start calling it our annual Back to School webinar. We have 6 amazing teacher sellers coming up. We're going to go from 7:30 now till about, each talk will run for about 45 minutes. So each webinar, please stay for the whole thing if you can. It's being recorded, so it'll be available afterwards on our Facebook channel and our YouTube channel as well, which is very handy. So how is this going to work? So right now we have 2 amazing teachers and teacher sellers, of course, on Mash. And they are going, the subject for this talk was side hustle like a teacher. So we're just going to talk about the whole idea, I guess, of selling your products and resources and how, if you're interested in it, if you find it interesting, you might be able to pick up some tips. So we have Claire there. Hi, Claire.
Hello.
And we have Maria. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Maria first of all. So this is Maria Murphy, and I'm going to read out her bio now. It's going to sound really artificial. I'll add pieces to it, Maria, as we go. I suppose a disclaimer is I have a very strong connection with Maria because Maria is from the same village I'm from in Mayo, Rossport. Now she's years younger than me, so we didn't actually even go to school. I remember you when you were a little 4-year-old girl with blonde hair, and I still see you as that Maria. So yeah, we went to the same school in Rossport, same primary, same secondary school. So I was kind of just really impressed and interested when I saw Maria had set up her own business, which is great. It's called the Primary Teacher Interview Consultancy. Is that correct, Maria?
Yes.
And so Maria set that up to help teachers at any point of their career, which is interesting. This is not just for NQTs, in any educational setting, to help them with interview preparation and guidance. And she does one-to-one consultations, webinars, and mock interviews. And I know I was talking to Maria before we came on live, and she is very happy to say that she's really busy with it, which is great. And I was telling Maria, when I started teaching, there was some random guy, I think I met him at County Meath, in a hotel room, who did a mock interview with me, which sounds really dodgy, but it did actually alert me to the fact that I was not answering the questions in interviews. So I do think the services that Maria is providing are really invaluable, particularly if you're a new teacher as well, starting out. And she has loads of experience in teaching as well, so I know she'll bring that to her clients as well. So that is Maria Murphy. Claire, well, another disclaimer, I actually teach with Claire in Educate Together in Portlaoise. And I know her for a while now, probably 8 or 9 years, Claire. She is one of Mash.ie's top-rated sellers. She says herself extremely high quality planning documents, and they really are. I think teachers always comment on that as well, Claire. She runs a Facebook and Instagram page, teachingplans.ie, as well as a teaching blog. And she has a decade of experience. So she's worked in mainstream, SCT, EL, and management. And she's taken on an AST class in September. So I think that's a very short summary of those 2 amazing teachers. You can always add something else if you think I forgot to tell you something else about myself. Feel free to. But that's the brief introduction. I also meant to say that if you want to add a comment or a question, you can add it. And Simon, who's working behind the scenes, is going to be adding the comment there. And Maria and Claire will be able to... We'll be able to answer them as we go along. So we have one question here. Will this webinar be available to watch later? And it will, yeah, it will. We have some lovely prizes to give away. Maria and Claire have offered to give away their most loved, probably most downloaded plans. So Maria is giving away her most popular Mash.ie resource, which is 30 buzzwords in interviews and what they mean. And Claire is giving away her primary language curriculum fortnightly plan template and sample for both English and Irish, and the winner can choose their own class level. So thank you, Maria, and thank you, Claire. And thank you also for agreeing to take part in this evening. I know you're both very busy, but I know teachers are really busy, especially this time of year. So thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to having a chat. Now, so how you can win those prizes is anyone who makes a comment or a question will be entered afterwards. We'll kind of do a draw then, and we'll put you in touch with Claire and Maria and send you those prizes. So if you have any questions at all about how to be a teacher seller, or back to school, or NQT or SCT for later on, please feel free to start interacting on the comments there, and Simon will get to work and start putting them up. So let's get started. So Maria, I'm going to start with you first, if that's okay.
Yes.
And yeah, is that all right?
Yes, start with me.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I know you set up.
Okay, Rozz. Can you
Say
hear
it
me
again?
okay? Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I'd say there's a little bit of a delay, but it's fine. We'll work through it.
Yeah, there is a delay, I think, of a second or two. So I'll speak really slowly and have lots of natural pauses. That's hard for me. So the first question is, I guess it's related to the primary teacher interview consultancy that you set up, Maria. And I suppose, I know you set it up in May just this year, so it's a very new business. Why and when did you decide to set it up?
Well, I've always had an interest in interview preparation. I've helped lots of colleagues and friends in interview preparation. I did a master's in leadership and management a couple of years ago, and I based my thesis on teacher induction. And as part of that thesis, a lot of, I suppose it ignited a spark in me to research further into teacher induction and areas that NQTs are finding difficult, and areas that all teachers are finding difficult, really. Teachers embarking on change. And anyway, interviews were a big thing. We knew lots of information but did not know how to express ourselves in interviews, what vocabulary to use, how to structure answers, and so on. So like I said, I've always helped colleagues, friends, and that kind of a thing. But what really pushed me to start the business was I actually had a baby earlier on in the year, and so I didn't intend on starting it this year for sure. But my brother applied to a master's. There was thousands of applications and there was only 35 places, and he was offered a place, and he said to me, Maria, you should really look into doing something in this area, and you love it and you love helping people. And anyway, I did, and then I set up the Instagram page, and I said to my husband, and I said this to you earlier, Rozz, if I get 10 clients this summer, I'll be really happy. But I'm so grateful because all of my webinars have sold out, and I've could be double booked with one-to-one consultations, and I have enjoyed every second of it. And I can honestly say I have never looked at the clock through a webinar or a consultation or anything, and I've loved it. And we've had hundreds of success stories. So it's been a whirlwind summer. Definitely didn't expect it to take off like it did, but I'm so grateful that it did. Yeah, because I've loved it.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. I always forget that I'm doing the same as you, Maria, and Grace, and Claire, and all our sellers tonight, and that we all have side hustles. So we do our teaching job, do our planning and our work, and then effectively we kind of have another job. And I'm always looking at people like you going, how do they do it? So how do you do it? Like, how do you do it really? I know you have a 1-year-old child as well, but Maria, how do you, fit all that in as well?
Well, I have a very supportive husband. Fikra will be one now in a few weeks' time, and the way I have planned it is that I prioritize his needs, and that would be my thing. And I'm very organized. I have all my plans in place. I organize my consultations really well. I give myself enough time to research, the educational context that my client is working in. I usually take consultations in the morning and at night, when Fikra's in bed, and I just love it so much. It doesn't really feel like work, and I know that sounds like such a cliche, but it really doesn't. And I always come off a session in better form. And it's like exercise. When I go out for a run, I feel better after it, and I'm the same with this. But yeah, it has been, I'm not going to say it's been easy. It has been challenging balancing everything. And I went back, I was appointed to a new position when I was 38 weeks pregnant. So I started in that new position for 2 weeks as well in June. So been balancing everything. But I think definitely, and I had a live last night on my page with an education coach, and we spoke at length about minding your mind and self-care, and I have been really mindful about that as well. yeah, and a very supportive husband.
Yeah, no, I think so. And Claire as well, you're probably going to say the same thing about organization. I know you are highly, like Claire is super queen of organization. But Claire, how do you, you have a really busy position, teacher job, you have a post, AP1 in our school as well. How do you manage all of that as well as, your lovely husband and building a house and I'm sure a million other things to do? When do you do your work, or when's your best time to do your work?
I guess for me, I would generally not do a huge amount during the year. It's just too busy with school and that. But like I do a fair bit now over the summer. Like I'd probably take 2 weeks off and then I would kind of work on it the other weeks. And I tend to try and do it so that like I would work normal work hours. So I might do like 9 to 5 and then, do take evenings and weekends off. So I do try to be very disciplined about it like that. And then like I would do a fair bit, maybe like I at Easter, I'd take a week to do work on the business and then I take a week off. So that's how I kind of would do it. And then just, very good time management. I guess you get out of it what you put into it. So you do have to kind of commit to doing it. And then, I've built it up over the years. It wasn't kind of overnight. I've been at it for 5 years now. So it's definitely something that I've built up over time.
Yeah, it's true. You do get out what you put in, you definitely get out. And you can easily set up a store on Mash and put up a product or two and hope for the best. But I know both of you have really given it your all. And I think that's why you're so busy and you're such a success, because you give so much time to it as well. And I think that you obviously as well, we're talking about the money side. It's nice to make an extra bit of money, but I think it's about, if you don't enjoy it and you don't enjoy what you're doing, then, there's no point doing it. So no,
I think when you're doing a second job, you really need to love it, because otherwise it's not sustainable really. And that's something that I found anyway. I probably wouldn't have been able to sustain the hours I put into it unless I loved it so much. Definitely not. I'd say Claire probably feels the same.
Yeah, I really enjoy, like, yes, it's very tedious and at times it can be really boring, doing plans. But what I really love about it is that you're kind of like your own boss, you can do things kind of the way you want and to the standard that you want. And then like I get really nice feedback from people to say that the plans really helped them, or that they're in NQT and they hadn't a clue where to start with the planning. So it's nice to hear back from people like that. So yeah, really enjoy it as well.
Yeah, it must have been just as a lady that, Aegis Josephine Maria, and she said I attended a few webinars with Maria and they were invaluable with preparation for interviews. So it definitely is the feedback when someone says something positive that you've done, that's, it's worth more than anything. And then you get you've constant positive feedback, comments about your plans. So that must feel great as well. Because I think it's hard in the teaching job. It's different from when you work privately for yourself. Because if you put in this work, you've really earned all that. It's hard to get praise in teaching, maybe.
Yeah.
People are always giving out, or maybe it is hard to get to. There's teacher bashing and negativity. Whereas I think if you run your own thing, you can actually really enjoy the kind of more positivity of that, I guess. Okay, so Maria, what do you do then? So say if I was an NQT country saying I'm an interview next week, what would you recommend, or what would be your top tips? I guess I think Moonshot Grace actually sent in that question. What are your top tips for interviews?
Okay, well, if someone, just to answer your first question, if someone came to me and said, well, look, I feel that I'm unprepared or I don't know where to start, if I had a webinar coming up, I would tell them to get on to the webinar. First of all, the webinar is only €25, so it's very affordable, and it's affordable for a reason, because I'm very conscious that newly qualified teachers may have been living in Dublin or anywhere for the past 4 years, and it's extremely expensive. And I wanted my service to be affordable to people. That was really important to me. So it's €25. You get my book and buzzwords as well as part of that. So that's what I do first. And then if someone felt that there were still areas they weren't unsure about, I would we would book in some one-to-one consultations online. So I do my consultations through Zoom, and we would focus on areas that they felt unsure about. Sometimes I do find that the issue is self-esteem, and not imposter syndrome, not feeling worthy of the job. And I always say to people at the beginning of our consultations, remember tomorrow or whenever your interview is, you're meeting equals on the board. These people are your equals, and they want you to succeed, and that can be so invaluable to people. So just my top tips would be, first and foremost, believe in yourself. You are meeting equals on the board. You are a highly qualified individual, and you have so much to offer. That would be my first tip. My second tip is around the Gaeilge question. I am a Gaeilgeoir, and I know it's probably easy for me to say this, but when we're asked a question as Gaeilge, you see people going pale, and it is the easiest question you will be asked in your interview. So please don't fear it, don't overthink it, because what happens is then you don't comprehend the question. And that brings me on very nicely onto my third tip, would be comprehend the question before you answer it. And a nice way to do this is get into a habit of, when you're asked a question, rephrase that question to start your answer. So if I asked you, tell me about the positives of team teaching, to tell you about the positives of team teaching. So what that does is that prevents all of the and the and it also tells the interview board that you have comprehended the question correctly, and it gives you a little bit of time to think, well, what am I going to say and how am I going to answer exactly what has been asked. And so that would be my top 3 tips there. I have loads more, but that would
that's great. And you even followed your own advice, Maria, because when I asked you the question, you said, wait a minute, you were like, there's 2 questions there, I'm going to answer this one first, and you were kind of segmenting into what you had to answer, and now my 3 tips, and then you kind of summarize very well at the end. So if I was interviewing you, I'd definitely give it a job.
Oh, thank you. If I moved to Carlo, I'm going to call you up.
I'm not interviewing for anything apart from this, by the way. I have no jobs to offer. Interviews are funny. Like, I don't mind interviews. I will prepare for them a lot, but I actually don't stress. But I know a lot of people, they will actually feel sick. They'll feel nauseous. Claire, do you mind interviews?
That's why I have the affirmations on Mash as well, because there are so many people that are really, really nervous. Sorry, I cut in there because there is a delay. So sorry about that, Claire.
No, I mean, I don't really. I've done a good few of them now, so I don't really mind interviews too much. I guess, just take a deep breath beforehand is important, but I'm okay with public speaking and that, and interviews and all that.
Yeah, I think, some people just don't mind them, and then some just absolutely detest them. So I know, a last question for you, Maria. I know you have a really active Instagram page, and I guess if there was any teachers out there hoping to, teacher sellers that want to promote their page, or where do they start with Instagram? And do you have any kind of, I suppose, what works for you? Where do you get the most interaction on social media? What type of posts, what type of stories?
I think for me, it's not asking to be paid for everything. So I do give a lot of free advice on my page. Like some of my friends say to me, you're giving a lot away online. But for me, it's not really about that. It's about giving advice. It's about being passionate about, other individuals fulfilling or meeting their full potential, or reaching their full potential, should I say. So I do lots of reels, I do lots of sample answers, and what that does is that gives a sample of my service. I'm sure there are people out there that haven't paid me because they've gotten that advice and they've been happy with it, but I think it does give a sample of my service, and that I am passionate about it, and that I am good at what I do. So that would be my tip. It would be, give some free content to people, a sample of yourself. And you don't need to post, 7 days a week. You don't need to have reels all the time. Good quality posts, and that are targeted to your audience. My audience is obviously people that are preparing for interview, so all of my content focuses on that. So that's.
Yeah, no, that's part. And what about you, Claire? Would you, in terms of, I know you have a really busy Instagram page as well, and you will give a lot of kind of posts, and even you had a little set on interview tips, I think recently, wasn't it? Post kind of top tips. What works for you on social media? What do you get the most kind of traction from?
I really only started with the social media last year, and like I have to say, it does make a difference. So I mean, if you're thinking of having a side hustle, and that, like, it is a very important thing. Like, you do get a lot of you meet a lot of people, and I get a lot of questions through Facebook and Instagram, and that, I guess, like Maria said, giving away things for free, doing competitions, that kind of thing. And I think people as well like to see what I'm doing in my classroom. Like, so if I put up an example of a resource that I, not even something that I created, like just something that I am using that I'm finding really useful. Like, people find that helpful. I think especially like if I'm, putting up something that's like specific to, say, dyslexia, or specific to whatever it is I'm working with. Like, next year I'll probably put up quite a few bits to do with autism, because I'll be in the autism class. I think people find it useful to be able to see what you're doing as well, in your teaching role.
Yeah, I think so. And they like seeing the books you have, or resources, or any kind of activities that you're using.
Yeah.
Which leads me then a couple of questions for you, Claire. In terms of, I suppose, setting up as like side hustle, it's a very American term. I know that. It's kind of your own little, not little even, because that's demeaning it, but your own, your business outside of teaching. Would you have any kind of top tips, or if for someone who's thinking of starting out, or for someone who's doing it, and maybe, now, we don't want people to compete against you now, Claire, so we don't be giving top tips, but like, what are the basic things that really you should and shouldn't do if you want to start selling your products as a teacher?
Well, I would say, first of all, to have a niche. Like, I focus mainly on doing really, really high quality planning documents. Like Maria does interviews, other people focus on autism. So choose something that you actually are interested in doing, that you like doing, and focus on getting, I guess, well known for doing that, rather than doing kind of a little bit of everything. And then make really, really excellent quality products. Like, people aren't going to pay for something that they could just do themselves, or something that, only took a little bit of effort and time to do. Like, if you want to sell something, it has to be really, really, really good. So like, some of my plans would have taken 80 hours to do, like, I go into the file property sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, did I spend that much time on that plan? But like, if you want people to pay for it, it has to be that good that people aren't going to want to do it themselves. So yeah, a niche, products that are really, really good quality. Like, I do think it is important to have some kind of a social media profile, and then just be very careful with kind of legal things. Like, you have to be very careful with copyright. Like, anything you're selling has to be your own work that you've created from scratch. So like, you can't actually put images into products that you're just getting off Google Images. You can't use Bitmoji because they're copyrighted. Like, you can't use school templates, templates that your school might have created and that you're editing. Like, you can't do that. You can't edit other people's plans. Like, everything has to be like created from scratch by you. Like, you can get into a lot of trouble with copyright.
You would think you would assume teachers would know this, but we've had an experience of teachers that don't seem to realize that even a simple thing that you can't use a business's logo and pass it off as and sell it. It does kind of fascinate me that people don't realize.
Well, I just even heard on Joe Duffy last week, they had a thing about copyright on it. And just small businesses were taking Google Images, like, for, just of tourism sites, and they were putting them in on their Facebook page or their website. And then they were getting bills for thousands of euro from like the person who owned the photograph, saying this is copyrighted, you have to pay 5,000 euro. So you do have to be very careful like that. And then I guess as well, like, you have to be careful with revenue, either get a very good accountant, or that you're familiar yourself with how to, I guess, do the books and submit that, because you don't want to get in trouble with the tax man,
So or the tax woman.
woman, exactly.
Tax person.
Tax person.
So you don't want to visit from a tax person arriving at your door saying, open up all your files. No, that would be horrible. No, that's great, Claire. And I think you're talking about your niche there as well. And have a question there for Maria in a minute. I'll come to that in a minute, Simon, if you don't mind taking that question away. Your niche, yeah, I do think, and like me and Simon would talk about, the kind of top-rated, highly rated sellers, that you saw the niche. So the primary language curriculum, you started creating resources for teachers that were not there, because when the primary language curriculum came out, and still is, in my opinion, it's very controversial. It's not user-friendly, it's not teacher-friendly, it's not usable, despite what various organizations have tried to do with it, and very vague, and teachers just needed guidance. And concrete guidance, and how will I do this, and what does it look like? And it's not necessarily, I don't think teachers buy your plans and use it word for word, but they just want to see, how can I use it and edit it, and how can give them a bit of confidence. But it's kind of interesting, I think, that also not only do I see more teacher sellers on Mash leading the way in professional development, but also in webinars. Like, you see a lot of Instagram teachers giving webinars now in education centres. And I think it's brilliant, because the learning and the experience is coming from the teacher community, as opposed to someone in civil service in an office, which is important to a point. But I do think it's teachers that are teaching in the classroom who have the experience and the knowledge, how to actually look at the curriculum and bring it to life, which is what you did. So the niche thing is really important. And then, Maria, your niche is the interviews, but I think there's a couple of interview pages out there. And it's interesting to see why you are most successful. So it's interesting to see, why some people get more successful. And we could probably talk about that at length on another evening. But there is having a niche, but there's also, I don't know what this is, Maria.
I don't know. I don't know. I'd be very committed to CPD. So I'd be very knowledgeable about a lot of areas. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that comes across. I suppose I have a postgrad in SEN and a master's in leadership, so I can associate myself with a lot of teachers. Maybe that's what I don't know. I don't know what it is really, but I have empathy for newly qualified teachers, and I remember myself how difficult it is initially when you come out of college. I, like most teachers, high achievers, put everything into teaching practice, put my life, soul into it, got good grades, then came out, was put into a classroom, and then I kind of just thought to myself, geez, how am I going to maintain this level of work now for the rest of my life? And that's not what we want. That's not what anyone wants. And I'm very passionate about supporting people in all stages of their career, and NQTs, of course, as well. I'm very empathetic of their situation, because it is tough. Yeah, it's very competitive.
So it's probably personality as well, Claire, but you seem to be a real mentor, coach, interested in teacher induction, and that probably definitely helps people. And then they probably spread the word to other teachers and so on. I have a nice comment there. I don't know if Simon can put it up. It's quite long. Leanne Nigul, I attended different webinars with Maria, and through all her tips, advice, and great guidance, I feel much more confident going into an interview and secured a job. Yes, this year as an NQT. You should start getting commission, Maria, on it.
Oh, that's so nice. I get loads of comments every day, and it's so lovely. I get lovely emails from people that really take the time, and it's so lovely, and messages on Instagram and everything, and it's really, really, it's so nice. Really, it's payment in itself. It's lovely.
It's lovely, but it's nice to get the payment too now. Don't do it for free, Maria.
Oh yeah, now don't do it for free, mind you.
Claire, you have, I don't know how many products you have. I should have counted them up. You have lots of products. But what's your best seller, and why do you think it is? Or can you understand why one particular product might sell the most for you?
I guess for me, probably the primary language curriculum products were the best sellers. And I mean, even now they're still selling, because I think people are kind of going back after being on leave or career breaks or whatever. So people are still quite interested in them. And I think, like, at the time when the primary language curriculum came out, like, I was as mind boggled as everybody was, and trying to make sense of it. So I literally spent weeks, hundreds of hours going through it, researching it, trying to make sense of the thing, and then trying to put it into long and short-term plans in a way that was actually user-friendly and easy for people to make sense of, and then making them into kind of editable plans that people could change and kind of quickly use to suit their own needs and their own class and that. So I again, it's finding kind of a niche or something that there really is a kind of a demand for. Like most people weren't going to spend hundreds of hours trying to figure out how on earth do I plan for this thing. So for me, that one was quite successful. And then just at this time of the year, a lot of I've long-term plans for every class level now, so they'd be quite in demand at this time of year now.
No, that's great, Claire. And when I came out of college, university, and I don't know, can you buy them anymore? There was books, you could go into shops, so you can get them on Amazon now, and you would have like 100 math lessons for year 5 or 100 math lessons for year 6. And Mash, or the products that we sell, are basically the same thing, but they're just written by experienced teachers that are actually using them. So all the plans that you have made, you've actually used them. And you also can go back. I know you edit a lot of yours and alter them and update them and so on, which is the nice thing too. So they're not kind of static plans sitting there. And we get a lot of, it's generally planning, but Gaeilge is a massive one in terms of niches, and also special ed autism. And I always look and go, why? Why is it and is it because I don't think there's much, the professional development obviously is not giving teachers what they feel they need to be confident in teaching these areas. So I always think Mash is kind of filling that niche, hopefully helping teachers feel they can use them now to actually teach a better Irish class or a long-term plan to kind of get them started. But no, that's great. No, that is excellent. I'm looking now, sorry, it's like I'm diverting to the other side of the screen. I'm getting little comments here to read out. And I know Mr. Moonshaw, who's going to be on later, Adam, who is, he took the summer off. It was very sad. I think he took the summer off Instagram, so I didn't get to see him, but now he's back. And he's right to take the summer off because now he's fully invigorated and refreshed, and he's brilliant on Instagram, and he's great for giving shout outs.
Yeah, he is great. I actually missed him.
Huh?
I actually missed him. I really like that.
Adam. But he would like to know, Maria, how you're finding the Instagram teaching community as a relatively new page. So you only set up recently. So how do you find it?
Yes. Great, actually. Really positive. I haven't had any negativity as such. So hopefully long may it last. I'm finding it great, and I'm finding it a great source of CPD. And if there's anything that I've taken from this summer is I've had lots of people on lives with me, and people are so generous with their time, and in different niches. So maybe like I had an education coach on last night. I had Maureen from the Autism Corner on. Anyway, I had Asher in Action, and a good few people on to give sort of like that, free advice to people and some guidance. But where was I going with that comment? But anyway, yeah. So for me, it's been CPD in itself. I have learned so much from the community, and I've really, really enjoyed networking with all of these lovely people online. One thing I would say is that if I was an NQT now I'm teaching a long time, but if I was an NQT looking at all of these people setting up their classrooms, I feel it is very overwhelming for people, and it's sort of just, if there are any NQTs watching this evening, is, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Your room will come together, and not to be stressed about the room. Think about the children, think about yourself, and saving a little bit of energy to have a life. And one thing I would say, it probably is a little bit overwhelming for people looking at all this setup, and it's fabulous. But sometimes it can be a little bit of an added pressure. But lovely ideas, mind you.
No, I think so, Maria. And I think anything on social media can be an added pressure, and teaching is it's not, that's not, teaching is not unique in terms of, you often see that if you ever look at the American teachers on Instagram and their classrooms, like, it's as if they hired an interior designer. My house doesn't look as good. My bedroom doesn't look as good as some of those classrooms. I'd like to sleep or eat in some of those classrooms. But I went in one day and I set up my classroom. I should have taken a picture. It's just desks and chairs, guys. And that's it. And it really, like, because and it's not that, and I'm not kind of, I suppose, taking away from what some teachers love doing that, and that is their world. But for me, when you're doing different things, you have to prioritize. And if I had more time to make my classroom look, I would, obviously do that. But you can get burnt out doing things like that. So for me, I always prioritize my teaching activities and prioritize the children, that I get a chance to speak to them when they come in the door, and they get a chance to interact with their friends. I don't know if children care too much about, some of these things we put. I think the first day they just want to chat with their friends and they just want to have a bit of fun. And
like
that's
you
what I
said,
tell
Rozz,
myself anyway.
being mindful. It's being mindful that some of these pages, especially the UK pages, they have maybe 2, 3, 4 TAs, teaching assistants, that do lots of these displays for them. And it's to compare.
Yeah.
Because it's you can't compare it. It's incomparable.
No, but you do, I suppose you do. It's inevitable. We compare, isn't it, and put pressure on ourselves, but we just try not to, I guess. So we have about 9 minutes to go. Simon is sending me messages here, so I'm probably talking to us. He's telling me, stop talking about that topic, move on. We have a question there from Kira Rose Shotsman. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Would you have any advice for an NQT and SET? Also, any advice for attempting Droichead and SET? Now, I don't think, will we deal with that question now? We will, because Simon's put it up on the screen. We're going to have to deal with it now. Maybe, Claire, would you like taking a bit of that? Do you mind? Or advice for an NQT start?
Mind. So part of my post of responsibility in school is coordinating special ed. So, I mean, they're probably, depending on the school, there's probably a big or a small set team, but definitely look for advice and help from people who are already in the role in the school. There's probably templates that they use for doing the plans, and that, so you can use them. And then I guess starting off, the first couple of weeks the first week of school is probably just helping out with the class teacher, helping the kids to settle in. And then, you need to just assess the children, observe the children. You don't need to have all of the support plans done straight away. You have until probably the end of September to do them. And then there's really good CPD available. So have a look at the NCSE courses. If you're not sure about the planning and that, they run courses on how to write support plans and things like that. So definitely sign up for CPD. That's what I'd say.
That's perfect, Claire. Thanks a million. Gosh, there's loads of invaluable advice there. Thank you. So we're going to be winding up in a few minutes. Didn't I tell you we'll go very quickly?
You did.
I hope the interview was pleasant, Maria. I hope it didn't put you under pressure now.
It's well due. Well due.
Yeah, and I just remind everyone that Claire's store, Teaching Plans, is on Mash, and she's offering up her fortnightly, I give it the long title, Primary Language Curriculum PLC, Fortnightly Plan Template and Sample for English and Irish. So if you enter a comment or question, we'll put you in a draw for that, and thank you, Claire. Maria is offering her most popular resource, which is the 30 buzzwords, the one she talked about in interviews, which interests me. The type of words that if you hear the word Maria, you kind of go, oh, I need to talk about this, or
yeah, well, I suppose what it does is it presents yourself as being a confident person, that you are up to date with current research and committed to CPD, and also in a bit of a maybe a panic. They're good words to pull out and to kind of move the interview on a little bit. The 30 buzzwords are really, really useful and will carry you through 98% of questions that come up in an interview.
Great. That's brilliant. Sounds cool. All right, so we are going to finish up. Claire and Maria, it's been lovely to chat to you. Claire, I'll see you next week. Maria, at some point I might see you down in Mayo. And it's been lovely to chat to you both, and thank you so much for giving all your time to this, and thank you for everything that you do on MASH, and wishing you the best of luck with MASH and the return to school next week. I know we're back Tuesday, the children come in, but yeah, Maria, when are you back to school?
I'm back to school Monday. I'm in tutoring Tuesday. So I've actually had junior infants for years, but I'm actually moving to first class this year, a new position. So I have some of Claire's plans, and I'm a really fussy planner, I take a long time at my plans. They are amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maria.
I have a couple of Claire's plans. I needed some guidance to get my head back in the game after maternity leave and changing class and all of that. But Claire's plans certainly did that. And thank you, Claire. They're amazing.
Thanks, Maria. Thank you.
That is great. That's brilliant. Maria, best of luck. And first class, I think they're the most interesting class level, because my little boy is going into first class, and yeah, he's still a real little baby, but it's extra hour, and yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
And Claire, good luck. I'll see you next week anyway. But,
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having us on.
No problem. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who commented. I hope I've read them all out. Lisa Crehan says, thanks for all the advice. And up Mayo.
Yes. Go, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah.
My little boy is 1 the day of the All-Ireland, so that's a sign.
That's a sign, if there ever was any.
Look, I've had signs every year, so look, I don't know. We'll have to see.
I do think the team this year, though, I do think they're just...
Yeah. I hope so now. I hope so.
Yeah.
We'll be there anyway, hopefully, shouting and roaring. And
I know there've been no Mayo teachers in school, like.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, next up we have SET. I think it is SET, it's Adam and Michelle as well. So that's at 8:15. I think we have a couple of minutes, but I'm going to say goodbye to Maria and to Claire. And hopefully the rest of you who are tuning into this now will stay into the next one as well. And thanks for watching, everyone. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hello.
Hi.
It's a bit disconcerting. I'm like, I'm finished that talk now, and now I'm going into the next one. Is Simon there? No, we're not live at the minute anyway. Is Simon there? He's there somewhere. He's in the sitting room. Oh,
we are live.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Just say Mash live up there. That probably would give a big clue. Hello, good evening to everyone. I don't know if some of you are caught up the last talk. We had Claire from Teaching Plans, and we had Maria from the Primary Interview Teaching Consultancy. A really good chat about, I suppose, side hustle and what they do as part of their business as well. It was really good. I could have chatted to them all night. So now we have the amazing Michelle Lyons-Doyle from Star Autism, yeah? And we have Adam from Mr. Moonshow.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, kind of in the flesh, Adam, a bit. I've never met you or Michelle in real life, but this feels, it obviously is a lot more realer. How are you getting on?
Yeah. All good.
Are you broadcasting from your cool shed place, Michelle?
I am. I'm logcasting from Costa del Back Garden in the log cabin. Sounds a lot more glamorous than it really is.
But it's so nice. It just reminds me of when Claire Byrne, remember when she had COVID and she was broadcasting from her shed?
From the shed.
It's as cool as that, Michelle.
Absolutely.
So how are you, Adam? You took a break for the summer, did you?
I did. Do you know, with how busy school was last year with the pandemic and just a normal school year being so busy, I moved counties last year. I moved into a new school. It was all happening, really. So I kind of decided at the end of the summer that I was going to take a break from Instagram. I wasn't taking a break from anything else because I was doing EPV courses and July provision and everything else. So it wasn't really a break below the surface. But on Instagram, taking a break just to recharge and kind of get ready for the new year, because I wanted to make sure I had the right content on the page going forward instead of just posting for the sake of it. It wasn't really something I wanted to do. So I decided to take the break, recharge, and now I'm back ready for action again, just in time for the new year.
That is great. Okay, listen, I'm going to read your bios out, and they're going to sound really formal, but just to give us an idea about them. So Adam Barrett is a very Mayo surname as well, Adam. He's teaching for 3 years, and he qualified from Mary Immaculate College, and he's worked as an SCT. I know you've been involved in SCT for the last 3 years. This year you're teaching second class, which would be interesting, and you have a big passion for special ed and inclusion as well, which is useful because tonight the topic is special ed. So that is very useful, and it's a good lead in to it. You're giving away one of your most popular Mash.ie resources, which is your SCT teaching guide, which I know is excellent as well and would be invaluable for any teacher starting off in SCT. Yeah, so thank you, Adam. And all you have to do to be put into the draw for that, you lucky viewer teachers, is comment or ask a question. You can actually put a comment in. You could say, "Hi, Rozz," anything at all, but it does have to be typed in. And yes, so we can put you into the draw for that. So Adam, you're very welcome, and thank you for coming along tonight. And then we have Michelle, as I said, Michelle Lyons-Doyle. She is the owner and creator of Star Autism. She's an experienced autism class teacher, and she's also a parent to an autistic child. So she's passionate about special ed and catering to the unique needs of autistic children. Michelle set up Star Autism as a page to share information and ideas with other teachers and SNAs and to chronicle the ups and downs of life as a parent. And I imagine it's not only useful, Michelle, your page, to teachers and SNAs, but also to parents of children with additional needs as well. And you're passionate, I think I have seen a lot of comments from parents, asking questions about it as well. And Michelle is passionate about the need for a respectful, strength-based approach in special ed and believes neurodiversity should be celebrated. So you're giving away your most popular Mash.ie resource, which is your visual schedule, which is, it's if you had to have top 5 products to have when you're working in a classroom for autistic children, it would be the visual schedule symbol pack. So thank you very much, Michelle, for offering that up as part of our competition. We are going to get started in a few. I'm looking at the time now. Okay. No, I'm doing good. Well, that's a nice little settling in question. I was thinking about this summer and last summer. Do you feel, I suppose, Adam, I'll start off with you. Do you feel any different, as in more restful, more stressed compared to going back last summer? What's the feel?
I definitely feel this time around, compared to last summer, I'm way more calm when it comes to getting ready for the new school year. Like I said, this time last year, I moved from Kerry up to Cork and started subbing. So obviously I was starting from zero. Whereas this summer, I suppose I've had the luxury of having my job secured since the start of the summer. So I've been able to kind of rest and tip away at some prep for the new school year. And obviously circumstances outside the school, I think, are a little more under control as well, which is obviously ideal. This time last year, we were still in the thick of everything. So I think I'm definitely a bit more relaxed this year heading into the school. It's a school I know. It's a familiar setting, and I think that makes all the difference for teachers. So yeah, I definitely feel more relaxed, more in control, and more kind of able as a teacher this year than I did 12 months ago.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And actually, I think I spent a lot of last summer getting my classroom to be COVID-19 friendly, with all these signs and rules and lessons and all that kind of stuff. Now, this year we'll only have to recap, and the children will have been in that for a year, so that, they know what this is, the new normal, to use an awful cliche, but it is. So, we all know what we're getting into this September, in a way, most.
Hopefully.
So what about you, Michelle? How do you feel this summer as opposed to last summer?
Similar to Adam, kind of last summer, I was very, very uncomfortable going back. I was very anxious going back. I just didn't know how it was going to work, especially in a special education setting. Just purely by the needs of some of the children that you work with in a special class. They need you to be more tactile with them. They need you to be physically closer to them. I remember seeing lovely guidelines that you put a lovely box around your desk, and if you teach from your desk, it's perfectly fine, and the children can take instruction from further down the classroom. Yeah. Certainly in my special education classroom, that wasn't a runner. So it was about kind of managing risk, but still being kind of respectful of the children and their needs. Whereas this year, I'm really lucky to be fully vaccinated going back. the children in the class are used to kind of the new routines with the extra hand washing and the hand sanitizer, and a lot of things. Like last year, I remember I was in organising my classroom today with one of my SNAs, and we were saying, oh, do you remember last year we were in a panic? We were saying, how will we divide up the Play-Doh toys, and how often do we have to sterilise everything, and can we use Milton? Is that still safe for children? And or do we bleach things? And we have all those procedures in place now. Everything at the school, we've a really good team at the school where everything's been really well organised and well managed. So all those procedures are in place now. So they're kind of second nature at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
kind of
feeling positive and kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It frees you up to do other important things like planning for teaching and things like that. No, it is. Yeah, no, it is great. It is great. And when are you back to school, both of you? Are you back already or?
I'm in on Monday.
Okay, and Adam?
I'm the same. Yeah, I'm in on Monday and the kids are in on Tuesday.
I'm the same
nice.
as that. Yeah. I think there's some strange schools in my area. The children were back on Wednesday, like yesterday.
Goodness.
I know.
Yeah, my mum's a teacher as well in Bray, where I live in Wicklow, and she's back. She was back today, back with a bang, but really, really enjoying the extra couple of days.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm always feeling nervous. Before I'm teaching 21 years, and every year I still feel nervous, and I still think, can I still teach a class every year?
I don't think it goes away. It really doesn't. I'm the same.
That's such a curse. And I just think any other job, you'd be like, yeah, I can do this now. It's no problem. But you don't every year. It's something.
I think a lot of teachers were these kind of inner perfectionists where we want to at least look like we have everything under control. So there is that kind of at the back of the mind saying, oh my God, have I done this? Is this ready? Is that ready?
Yeah.
What if I don't have this up on the wall and I don't have this laminated yet? And I think, I know certainly I used to make myself almost insane for the first couple of weeks before school. I worried about having everything perfect the first day.
Yeah.
Probably the best thing I've learned over the last few years is just to have the basics in place, but go with the flow. Yeah. And get to know the children that you actually have in your class and what they need. Yeah. And then panic the next weekend and get them ready for the following week. But
just get day one over with. That's
it.
Lots of activities planned and then get.
And that things don't have to be perfect. They can be good enough. And that's enough for the children. Like you were saying in your previous chat, that the first few days the kids want to have a chat with each other. And I think just having that in mind really, really helps.
Yeah, I think so. So Adam, we're talking about SCT, and I want to remind everyone, any questions, send them in about SCT to Adam or Michelle, and we'll do our best, just add them in the comment box. Adam, what would you say right now? So I know there's only a few days, but what are the most important things to prioritize at the beginning of the year as an SCT? If you're going in as an SCT next week, what would you be thinking about?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most common questions I've been getting over the last week or so, especially for NQTs who are going into SCT for the first time. I think there's not a whole pile you can do for SCT in terms of planning because you haven't probably met the kids you're going to be working with yet. The needs might have changed since you last saw the children before the summer. If they're infants, they could be coming in fresh from preschool and they might not have a plan in place yet if they don't have a diagnosis or something. So my advice to people going into SCT, especially if they're going in for the first time, I think the main things before you start school is to be aware of the continuum of support, because that's obviously the framework that we work off of as special education teachers. So being aware of the structure of the continuum of support, and also looking at school support files. There's blank templates online of a school support file. Every kid that you will have as a special education teacher will have one of these files. So by looking at a blank one, you can kind of see what goes into each section. And then obviously when you go to read a child's school support file in September, it won't be alien to you. So they would be the kind of two main things I would say in preparation, is knowing those two documents, the continuum of support and the school support file.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice, Adam. And then I suppose from that, it is the dreaded targets or learning targets. So you're writing your classroom support plan, school support plus. How do you find, I suppose, a way that you would write your best targets or best qualities that will ensure that a child is learning at the end of a teaching period?
Yeah, so I always use I used to use the SMART framework. It's now been upgraded. It's now SMART-A. We've added an A at the end of it. So that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, and agreed. So that's the way I write my targets. So all targets need to be specific to the child that you're working with, measurable in the sense that at the end of the time period, you can see if the target has been met or not. Achievable, because there's no point setting a high goal that a child definitely won't achieve. So set it as a target that will push the child to improve, but not that they won't achieve the goal. There's no point in setting high targets for children that won't get to them. Relevant, then, it's obviously very important that the targets are relevant to the child's needs. There's no point in writing up a load of maths targets for a child who has issue with their phonics. It's not relevant to that child. So you need to set targets that are relevant to the child. Time bound, all targets should have a time limit. So you could say that the child is going to hopefully reach the target by the end of the term, or by the end of the half term, depending on the target, or it could be by the end of the month if it's a very short-term goal, especially in the transition back into school. And then the last letter is A for agreed, in that the targets are agreed upon by the class teacher, the SET, the SNA if there is one, and the parents as well. It's important that all the relevant stakeholders agree on these targets, and as well, if you're working with external professionals, that they have a say in the targets as well. So that is kind of the framework I use, the SMARTA approach. It's quite commonly known. I think most teachers will have come across it in some way, shape or form over the years, but that would be the framework I would use when setting my targets for my children.
Yeah, that's very useful. Definitely the A as well. And in terms of, I know in our school, we would meet the parent, generally we would communicate with the parents in any support plan, but to have a kind of a formal meeting with the parents in terms of school support, would you do that, Adam, as well?
Yeah. Yeah, we do try. Obviously, recently it has been more difficult to meet with the parents physically, but we have always tried to meet with them obviously virtually in the last year over Zoom or by phone calls, whichever works for them really. We would, depending when you set your school support file up, if you set it up in September, you're generally going to be formally reviewing it in January and potentially in June again as well. So they are 2 times where you'll definitely be onto the parents, and realistically, you should be in contact with them if there's anything significant to tell them about. There's no point in being onto them obviously every day, bombarding them, because they're just going to get stressed out, especially if the parents have multiple children or multiple children with SENs and they have a lot on their plate as it is, and they're probably working as well. So communication is very important, but knowing when to communicate is also as important. Effective communication is key, that you keep the parents in tune and they know exactly what's going on. If the child has improved, if you feel they've regressed, the parents need to know these kind of things. And it's also important to ask them their opinions on things. We might think we know the children, and we do have a fair idea of the child, but parents know the children best. We have to get them involved. It's in the Constitution that parents are the primary educators of the child, and we have to respect that and involve them in the education where they can and where they want to be, and keeping them informed on an ongoing basis how the child is progressing. And that's even for a child that isn't necessarily with an SET. Even if you're a class teacher and a child is just having a sticky patch where they're just struggling with a concept, even, it doesn't have to be a long-term thing, or they're struggling with their behavior or something, that you keep the parents informed. So it's not a shock when it comes to the review meetings or parent-teacher meetings and they're like, I didn't know that my child was doing this. There should be no surprises. So ongoing but effective communication, I think, is key, especially
so important
at the moment when you can't meet the parents face to face, more than likely.
Yeah, and thank you, Adam. I think, meeting parents last year, it was just difficult because it is on Zoom and it is just not the same. And even if you had wanted to say something small to the parents at the end or in the morning, that opportunity was gone. So it might always build up into then the formal meeting, and it definitely makes the job much stranger and just not as pleasant, I guess. So next year, I don't think there's going to be, I think it's going to be more of the same. I think next year it's going to be Zoom meetings as well and so on.
Looks like it for now anyway.
Yeah. So we'll just have to go with that, I guess. Now I might get both of you to answer this question. There's a question from Kira Rowe Shotsman. Now she's asked 2 questions, so I'll just ask the first one first, which is, would you have any advice for an NQT in SET? Michelle, would you have any advice off the top of your head?
I would start by not thinking that you have to reinvent the wheel. Quite often when you're joining a set team in a school, there could be teachers that have been in the role for years and just have it inside out. They know the children so well. They can tell you from off the back of their hand what assessments are in school, what resources are in school. I know I worked in SET before I moved into the ASD class. I was an EAL teacher and I was a resource teacher, as we were called back in the day. And I know I spent ages in the first couple of weeks trying to make up resources based on a certain area of phonics or a certain area in maths. And then when the class teacher kind of saw what I was doing, she's kind of said, "Oh yeah, that's lovely. But when I was a resource teacher, I made up this pack." And she showed me a folder of resources that she'd used and honed over years that totally eclipsed what I was able to put together myself as an NQT. So
I hope you told her to upload them onto Mash, Michelle.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think they're wasted in her cupboard. They're wasted.
That's it. There's so many gold mines out there from experienced teachers who have these fantastic resources. Just need to be tapped into. But I think just realizing that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it's very much a collaborative process. I know quite often when you work in a set team, you do conference with other teachers. I know if you're in a small school where you might be very limited, or you might only be a shared set teacher, obviously that brings other challenges and it's not as easy to kind of pull from the experience of the other staff. But if they are there, use them. Another thing I'd really say is to try and build a relationship with the children, and ideally with their families as well. And quite often children that have special education needs or have support needs in terms of their literacy or their numeracy, quite often school hasn't always been a happy place or an easy place for them. Children often themselves will be aware that they are that bit different, or that they find this much harder than Mary and Joe sitting beside them do. So I think it's really important to come from that place of supporting the children, reinforcing their confidence and building it up, and building that relationship and that trust. Because I think once you've that bond built with the children, they'll be eating out of your hand, and anything you want to do with them, it's going to really, really help. So focus on the relationship and focus on the supports that are there for you already. Will be my two things, really.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. That's great. Wonderfully answered. And
I suppose, yeah, I'd obviously echo what Michelle said there about building relationships. That's very important at the beginning of the year. I did complete part of my NQT year as an SCT and did Droichead. Now, it was very skewed, shall we say, because I spent a lot of time at home during that period, because it was during the first lockdown. But what I would say from a Droichead point of view is that it is very similar to the class teacher or the classroom role, I suppose. If you're doing Droichead in the classroom, it's similar to, the expectations are very similar in the sense that you're expected to do your planning, expected to have your observations, to do your CPD, your learning activities, to meet with your PST, that kind of thing. It's all very similar in that regard. Obviously, your plans are tailored to SET rather than the classroom, and your observations may have to take place some in the classroom and some in the special education setting, but it is very similar. So I wouldn't think that it's this independent thing. What I would also say, I suppose this is slightly a cheeky plug, but sure, look, I am running a SET webinar for NQTs in September with the Education Centre in Tralee. So if Akira and the other people that are wondering are interested, that is through the Education Centre in Tralee on the 9th of September. So I suppose I better get that in there, really, where I'll be obviously talking about it more in length, I suppose. So sign up, please. It's free.
No, that's great. I actually did see that, and I find it interesting now that we have, I was saying that before in the last talk to Claire and Maria, that we have teacher influences from social media now in education centres giving courses as well, which is great. So it's not just the PGST or, do you know, it is great. It is great. And I think people love going to those as well. Adam, best of luck. That is excellent. There you go. So Kira's delighted with that.
Brilliant. That's one person signed up anyway.
Okay, one person. So with Droichead, is it much different, Michelle? Do you have any experience of Droichead and SCT or?
I don't. I'm a dinosaur compared to Adam. I qualified in the old-fashioned kind of dip day type scenario. So totally different, but I can see that it'd be much, much better because you're working with your in-school management team. You're working with your support teacher in the school that knows the profile of the children, knows the profile of the resources in the school. They know what you're working with. So I think it could be more realistic than an external inspector coming in with, well, in the school up the road, they're doing X, Y, and Z, and you're only doing A, B, and C. So I think just having someone who knows the school and knows the context would make a huge difference from a Droichead point of view. in terms of evaluating you as a teacher and how you're getting on.
And it's definitely not as scary as this inspector person coming in with their suit and briefcase.
I still have nightmares about it.
Yeah, less official, more like it's a teacher colleague.
It's supportive, it's nurturing, makes far more sense for a caring profession, a caring educational profession, I think, that there is that kind of bringing someone on as opposed to telling you what you're not doing right.
Yeah, I know, and always finding something. I have a long question here from Lisa Crehan. I'm not sure if Simon will be able to put up the full question. Oh, he does. There you go. So, Lisa, a question from Michelle. I have 2 children, very different needs, but on the autism spectrum in my mainstream class this year. I know how routine is so important to them, but does this have to be in place from day or week 1? So that's the first question. Then she says, I want to know who they work best at what times of the day. They need movement breaks before I make my timetable. Should I have a seat assigned day 1 so they will be less anxious on day 2? So what do you think about that, Michelle?
A lot there. And it's fantastic that Lisa's picked out the need for structure is there and routine is there. It doesn't have to be in place formally from day 1, week 1. I know I have new children joining my class, and I'm obviously in an autism specific class, but even in mainstream, you don't have to have it in place from week 1. I think if you have the basic structures in place in the classroom and the routines, it will help a lot. But in terms of having like a visual schedule made out for that child or an individual schedule, not necessarily. What I might do is I might start off with something like a little first and then board, even on a whole class basis, just so you can let the class know, okay, first we're taking out all our books and copies from our bag and we're labeling them, and then we're going to draw a picture. Even just as simple as that kind of structure, just so the child knows what to expect. And as you get to know the children, then you'll know kind of what support they need. Like, you often hear the phrase, you meet one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. Every child is so different and their needs are so different. And even their needs might present differently on their first day of school with a new teacher when they're anxious compared to when they've been in school for a term with you and they know you and you know them. So I think just taking them easy, giving them the structure and giving them the explanations, but it doesn't have to be elaborate and fully laminated and all set up. I think even giving them things like giving them a break card would be fantastic. That they know that if they need a break, they can show you this card, and it's not a big thing of putting up the hand and saying, teacher, I need this, I need that. Just a cue for you or for the SNA, if you're lucky enough to have an SNA supporting you in the room as well, that child is kind of struggling and just needs that bit of an out. Obviously, as you get to know them, you'll kind of know, okay, by the time it's 10:30, this child is kind of simmering and needs to go out for some deep pressure or to do some OT exercises. But for the first few days and weeks, just get to know them and try and give them some sort of predictability about first we're doing this and then we're doing this, and hopefully the rest will fall into place. If you want to get in touch with me on my Instagram or on my Facebook and send me a private message after the first couple of days, and if I can touch base with you and give you some more tips, I'd love to. So feel free.
Wow, that's very kind of you, Michelle. So Lisa, that was a very detailed answer, and I think it'll show Lisa seems to know what she's doing as well. She was kind of wondering about it, but I think there's some excellent tips there, Lisa. Thank you. We've got, Simon has just put up, I was just going to read that. That was like a hint. So Ida says, Josephine, she bought a few of Adam's resources and they were so practical. He gives real down-to-earth advice. And then we have another fan there, Moonshow Grace. She is saying, hi, Adam, I love your page. You're so positive and supportive. Keep up the great work. That's so nice, isn't it?
We're all fangirling over you, Adam.
Thank you. That's very nice. It's lovely to hear, especially with the resources and stuff, because that obviously wasn't the intention of my page originally. Wasn't to sell, it was just to share advice, and even that wasn't the intention. The intention realistically was just to set up a page to follow other teachers, and it's kind of snowballed obviously from there. And even like listening to Claire and Maria talking about resources, and like that's something, Claire did talk a lot about the copyright and stuff, and I suppose from a Mash point of view, over the summer while I was off, I kind of reevaluated what I had on my store. I had a lot more products before the summer. I actually have less products on the store now, but the quality of the resources I have there now, I think, are of a higher quality. So that's something I've learned over the summer that I definitely want to pass on to other people who want to sell on Mash, is that it's quality over quantity. If you have one brilliant resource, that's great. If you have 5 resources that you can't stand behind, don't put them up. There were resources on my page that by the summer I was reading them and I was like, look, I don't have the knowledge for this. I obviously thought it was a good idea at the time and I had good intentions, obviously. But I felt, look, I go away, it might be something I can revisit down the line. But I kind of streamlined then and said, look, I know X, Y, and Z. Let's just focus on those areas. And I just think that's an important point to make, that it's quality over quantity when it comes to selling resources.
Definitely, and I totally agree with that. Honing in on what interests you and what you know most about really helps, because you have that passion. It's going to show through in the quality, I think, of what you produce.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people can, I think other teachers can see that it's genuine experience and genuine love for a particular niche or subject or whatever it is. No, you're absolutely right. That's great.
Yeah.
So you've been doing lots of work over the summer. That's why you took the time off, Adam. You were
That's it,
secretly working. You said you weren't working, but you actually were. I'm only joking.
Absolutely.
We weren't spying on you or anything. So I have a couple of questions there from Michelle. The first one is, I suppose, I know you've worked in an autism class. For how long, Michelle?
I'm 2 years in my current school, and I taught 5 years in an autism class in a DEIS school in Finglas in North Dublin before that. Okay. So built it up at this point.
Wow, that's amazing. And I would sense that a lot of teachers, or some teachers, would feel very daunted about the autism class. So you've worked in it for so long. What would you feel are the greatest challenges, I suppose, and how, this sounds like a real interview question, doesn't it? How did you overcome those challenges?
Absolutely. I think your own sort of initial apprehension is first. I know, like, I'm qualified 12 years now, and I know that we weren't prepared adequately in college. No matter how good your teaching college was, nothing kind of prepares you for the reality of the job. Just because of how wide the area of Irish education is, I think you're prepared a lot for mainstream, or you certainly were when I was trained anyway. And then the set side of things kind of comes after as an add-on. I happened to be interested in autism. I was really lucky. I went to college in Freble when I was still in Blackrock, and we had a fantastic special education lecturer, Dr. David Carey, who's since passed away. Fantastic psychologist, and he had a grow for autism himself, and just was really passionate about explaining it, where it was something I didn't really know a lot about before my teacher training. So since then, I kind of read up on it and looked into it, and I kind of fell into working with the autistic community. I was asked to do July provision as a student teacher before I was qualified with a lovely autistic boy, and I just kind of said, I really, really like this. You can really see what you're doing makes a difference, even if it's a small thing. So I would have been apprehensive initially if I hadn't had that experience. I got my initial job teaching in an autism class. It's almost 8 years ago now, when I had no idea that my own daughter was going to be autistic. I fell into the job. I was offered a permanent job via the panel when permanent jobs were really, really scarce on the ground. And I was told initially it would be in the autism class. I was totally open with the principal in the school at the time, saying, I've never done this type of role before. I have done July provision. I've been a resource teacher, and I have worked with autistic students in mainstream, but I have no conception of what it'll be like in an autism class. I'd never even been inside one until I walked in as the teacher. So I committed to doing 2 years in the class, and 5 years later, I couldn't leave. I absolutely loved it. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy teaching in mainstream. I enjoyed set teaching as well, but I've just a real grow for the autism class. Yeah. So I think the challenges of your own perceptions, to get back to the question, would be a big thing, and just kind of giving it a try. I think especially if you're a teacher that's not permanent yet and you have the option to do a bit of subbing or a little bit of temporary work in an autism class, it's a great way to kind of get in, and you just realize, yes, there's a lot of jargon, a lot of things that go along with it, a lot of reputations that follow it, but they're just children at the end of the day. And they're usually the most gorgeous children you'll meet, because they're absolutely hand-reared by their parents, because their parents are so used to having to do so much for them and so much to bring them on and so much to advocate for them. So you'll usually have really, really supportive families as well in the background. Once you're in the job, it can be challenging. Like in my initial autism class I was in, I had from a child of senior infant age up to a child of 6th class age who was 13. So within those 6 kids, you have a huge range of abilities, huge range of ages, totally different aspects of the curriculum to cover. Like in the same class, you could have a child who's non-verbal or pre-verbal, and you could have a child who's almost like the sort of Sheldon Cooper Big Bang Theory stereotype of autism, where they're rattling off facts about Planck's constant and the universe. And so you're trying to split yourself 6 different ways to cater for all those children and all their different needs, not just academic, but there's also kind of the social side of things. Quite often, speaking as a parent myself, services from the HSE are just so lacking for children who are autistic or have special needs. And quite often as a teacher, you find yourself trying to kind of juggle the roles of a speech therapist, of an occupational therapist, of a physio, of a psychologist or a psychiatrist, when we're not trained for it at the end of the day. No matter how many in-service days you do or your own research you do, it's not our job. People go to college for years and years to study for those professions. But you're trying to bring in all those areas into your classroom because the children have those needs and they're not being met. Like, I know you might as a teacher, I know I certainly did go in initially saying, okay, I'm a teacher, I'm academic goals. Obviously socially a bit mix them, but academic goals were the thing. And I think I found it really challenging in my initial time in the job to kind of come back from that and say, well, no, I have to look holistically at the children in front of me and what their needs are, what their strengths are primarily, but also what their difficulties are, what are they struggling with, and what can I do to try and make it easier for them. Like a child's not going to be able to sit down and learn a maths concept or analyze a novel if they're struggling to physically be in a room with other people near them, or if they're so dysregulated from a sensory point of view that they just can't relax and they can't be at ease. So I think balancing all those needs is another challenge. But once you see the difference it makes for the children and you start to get a bit of an experience with it, it really is rewarding. And it really, I couldn't imagine myself doing a different job now. I really couldn't.
Yeah, you're really selling it, Michelle, but I think it's the lack of it. We don't really know what's going on, so we kind of start assuming, all these different things, and we assume.
And that was part of why I set up the page initially. I wanted kind of people, often when they hear autism, they think of kind of horror stories they've heard from the past where there was someone non-verbal, they might have had aggressive behaviors, they might have known someone who subbed in a special school and had a really awful experience where they were hurt or a child lashed out or things were just kind of out of control. So I kind of want to show that an autism class is a class primarily. It's a classroom for children to come to school and to mix and to learn and to have fun and to develop. And just to share that message, because I think quite often people hear kind of the horror stories, but they don't see the everyday joy and the love and just how good it can be as well. Yeah. And as a parent as well, that's so important to me, just to, yes, my child is autistic, but they're a child primarily with the same needs, the same wants as any other child.
Yeah, every child has their different challenges anyway,
That's it. Yeah.
That's fabulous, Michelle. Thank you. Another Michelle Berry, has a question for you, very specific. Any advice for supporting an autistic child who's extremely sensitive to fragrances and smells? A new student coming to my ASD class, and I'm quite concerned.
This is one I do think I can help with. My own daughter, Sophie, would be really like this. I could open the fridge in the kitchen, and if there was something in it she didn't like the smell of, she could be in her bedroom and she'd say, "What is that stink?" from the other side of the house. Some things that I'd do in a class situation is I'd make sure the child is sitting by the window, primarily have the window open, like we all should be at the moment in COVID times anyway. And quite often, if they're anything like my daughter, she's very sensitive to scents that she likes as well as scents she dislikes. So what I try and do is see if there's a smell that that child likes. Like Sophie loves like anything kind of like lavender or kind of citrus smells she really likes. So what I did last year for her in school, she was in a mainstream class up to this year just coming. She's transitioning to an autism class. And in the mainstream class, it was very big, it was very busy. She used to really struggle with like other children's lunches. If someone had something kind of pungent in their lunchbox, she'd find it really difficult to the point of being really nauseated. So what I used to do for her last year was, knowing she likes the smell of lavender or verbena, I used to get essential oils and just dot a little bit on her jumper or on her sleeve. So if she kind of encountered a scent that she found difficult, she could kind of sniff her sleeve. Or as well, obviously, if the child's in a position to be able to take a break and go outside and have a walk for a couple of minutes in the fresh air, that kind of can clear the air as well. But I think kind of ventilation would be the main thing. And then if the child has a scent they do like, try and have it that they can access that smell to replace the one that they dislike. Might help a bit, hopefully.
Well, that's brilliant. That's really practical, Michelle. Thank you. And hopefully that's helpful for Michelle Berry there as well. You're talking about emotional regulation, I suppose, and I'm very interested in emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, but I teach in the mainstream. But in terms of an ASD class, Michelle, how do you teach that to children who may be struggling with regulating their own emotions?
It's a big question, but it's such an important area. Quite often people who are in the autistic community, they might struggle with reading facial expression, tone of voice, body language, and especially in the school setting, this can lead to lots of misunderstandings. Especially if a child is integrating a lot with their mainstream peers or is in a mainstream placement, there can be misunderstandings at yard where a child's getting very, very upset, or maybe there's been kind of a conflict between different children because of a misunderstanding. And quite often it's a misunderstanding of being able to empathize and say, this child is feeling this way while I'm feeling this way because. So I think before we can kind of talk about emotional regulation, emotional literacy is huge. And this is something I would have done in mainstream as well. I think it's so important for children to be able to identify and label their own emotions first, and then the emotions of other people. In sort of special class setting, like I'd start off really, really simply with kind of mirror games, things like that. I always have a mirror in my classroom. And even just kind of making sort of exaggerated facial expressions in the mirror, like you might do yourself at home if you have a small child or a toddler, where you're making a big happy face, a big surprise face, a cross face, practicing making all these faces and letting the children actually see what does it look like when someone is cross. So I might show them that my eyebrows go like this and my face scrunches up, and I might get them to copy my expression and then maybe show me what their angry face looks like. If there's a child who struggles a lot with this, like they might have almost a blank expression for when they're happy. They might have a blank expression for when they're sad, a blank expression for when they're angry. So working with them in the mirror, letting them see how faces can change could be really helpful for them as well, because they can then see, oh, when Mary got cross with me in the yard the other day, her eyebrows went like that, like teacher said her eyebrows do when she feels angry. So maybe she might have been angry with me. Something else I do as well is I'd look at magazines, I'd look at clip art, and we'd have kind of a happy wall where we'd have cut out lots of different examples of faces looking happy. We'd have photographs of the children themselves looking happy, just to try and build their awareness with it. Something I try and do as well is I try and label emotions and pair them with events. So if something goes wrong in the class and a child is upset, obviously I comfort them first, but I might have said, oh, you were crying because this happened and that's why you were sad, just to label it for them kind of in context. And that can be really helpful. And then once you've got that kind of basic emotional literacy in place, I tend to use programs like Zones of Regulation. I find absolutely fantastic. It kind of breaks down all sorts of emotions and feelings into 4 different color zones. Something I really like about it from a mental health point of view is it doesn't say that there's kind of good feelings or emotions or bad feelings and emotions. All emotions are valid over the course of a day. You could feel the whole spectrum of colors and that's fine. But it helps the children to kind of realize that, are they in kind of a zone where they're feeling optimal? They're going to be able to feel just right, be able to concentrate, be able to get on with their work. And then if they're not, what can they do to get themselves feeling good again? And it gives each child kind of their own toolbox and their own strategies to kind of make themselves feel right again. So if they're feeling kind of lethargic, what can they do to get kind of jolted up and ready again? If they're feeling a bit too giddy and a bit high, what can they do to bring themselves back down that they feel more level? It's a fantastic program. It really is.
Yeah, and it's useful to have a program like that. I think if you're starting off teaching, even in the mainstream, to have a program to look at and to kind of,
I would have used the mainstream. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it really is.
Would you believe? Thank you, Michelle. I could listen to you all evening. You're very mesmerising, and Adam as well.
Sorry, just keep going on.
No, it's really interesting, and I think it's going to be really useful as well for teachers that are thinking about maybe teaching in an ASD class. We have about 7 minutes left, and there's one question I want to ask you, I suppose both, and I'll go to Adam first, and then maybe back to Michelle. So, in terms of now this isn't necessarily me pushing Mash.ie, but in terms of a resource, it's not obviously something you download, anything like a toy, an activity, a game. Have a think about it if you want. Maybe Michelle, you go first, actually, and I'll come back to Adam, because you might be more prepared for this one, because you were talking about different resources. Which resource would you consider like integral if you're teaching in an ASD class? And then Adam, if you're going into SED, what is your most used resource, let's say? So Michelle.
To start off, I'll start with something that isn't actually a physical resource. I'd start with the voices of actually autistic people. We're really lucky in Ireland that we have As I Am, which is a fantastic organisation run by actually autistic people. Adam Harris, their chairperson, and Fiona Ferris, their sort of second behind Adam, are both autistic people who were diagnosed when they were younger, but now they're adults. They're highly verbal, highly articulate, and they give fantastic explanations about what the world was like for them growing up. And I think if you're going to be working with someone who's autistic, just having that perspective is invaluable. Like, we can read all the theory in the world, but listening to someone like Adam or Fiona talk about what life is actually like for them makes a huge difference. And someone else I totally recommend is Amanda McGuinness. She runs the Little Puddins page on Instagram. She's autistic herself and is the mum to 3 autistic boys, but only found out herself that she had autism as an adult. So it kind of put lots of things she'd struggled with over her life in context for her. So she can she really has a gift for explaining how she perceives the world. And she's definitely given me huge insights into how my students and how my daughter perceive the world and how I might be able to make things a bit easier for them. Talking from kind of a materials point of view, it's visuals. It really is. People often think about using things like PECS, the picture exchange system, with children that aren't verbal. But I think any child needs them if they have autism, because visual is their strongest area usually. Like, my own daughter is highly verbal, highly articulate. She gave out now if she heard me talking about her, she's that articulate. But if she's feeling overwhelmed or she's anxious, speech goes, her comprehension goes, and the visuals are just so helpful for helping her know what to do and what's expected of her, and to kind of give her an out when she's struggling. So visuals would be huge. They really would. And I have lots of them up on my Mash store, just to bring it back to Mash.
Thank you, Michelle. That's lovely. Great. Yeah, lots and kind of different recommendations there for resources. What about you, Adam? Is there one thing that you use a lot?
Yeah, I suppose it's hard to pin down one thing, because obviously SET is so overarching with a range of different needs. But the things that I found that I was using across the needs were games-based things that the children could touch, feel, and use. I was even adapting a few of the resources, again, going back to Mash. I've adapted the game of Snakes and Ladders to incorporate phonics or tricky words into. It's games that the children are aware of, but you're bringing in what you're trying to learn to that. So using the known to kind of help support the unknown and bringing them together. So I would say games and physical resources would be an SET's greatest resource. And it's something that you can kind of prepare for without knowing the children you're going to have. Because if you have games, most children love games. If you have kind of fun activities for phonics and maths, or the general areas that you are more than likely going to be working in as an SET, that's kind of the way I went about it last year. Now, I was working in the infant end last year with SET, so obviously the games-based stuff works better for the younger children than the older children. But I would say games-based, tactile, that would be the approach I would take as an SET to resources. And you don't want to make it out like it's a mirror image of the classroom. Yes, it's learning. Yes, it's important that they progress, but it's important as well that they have fun, that they enjoy the learning process. And because it's such an intimate setting, doing games, having tactile resources is a great way to kind of support the learning, but also make the experience a fun one for the children.
Yeah, that's great, Adam. Thank you so much. And Michelle, thank you. Our time of chatting has come to an end, unfortunately. It goes really quickly. Adam, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for giving.
Thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you. It's been brilliant, and I'm sure the teachers that are watching in have really enjoyed this. Thank you. So you can catch a hold of Michelle on Star Autism. She's on Instagram, and Mr. Mucho is back now. So we're going to be
From my hiatus.
fully rested. I'm going to keep making that joke for a long time, you know. So that was our SET, and thank you so much to everyone who tuned in and everyone who sent questions. We have those 2 prizes, the downloads to offer up. Coming up now, we have the NQT hotline. It's kind of like Joe Duffy, so I'm going to pretend I'm Joe Duffy. We won't put you on live in a phone call, but send in any questions that you have about the first year after college, anything at all, like to the point, questions like, I always wondered, can I use anyone's mug or cup in the staff room? But at least with COVID now, we know you can't. You have to bring your own mug, so that kind of gets rid of that anxiety. So if there's any questions at all you have for Ciara from Ciara's Classroom and Grace from Moonshore Grace, send them on, and that is it really. So guys, thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Brilliant year. I hope everything goes really well, and we shall catch you on the Instagram anyway. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Rozz.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello, we are live. I'm going to get it right this time. The last time I didn't realize we were live, and I was probably talking about very mundane things like the sitting room. So no, we are live. Hello, everyone. If you were all tuning in from the last time, you're welcome to the next and final webinar of the evening. And welcome to Ciara from Ciara's Classroom and to Moonshore Grace from Moonshore Grace as well. I'm sure people call you by your first name though, Grace, not Moonshore Grace.
Of course.
Yeah, that's okay. I can call you Grace. You're very welcome. Thanks a million for agreeing to do this and for giving up your time at this time of the year. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And I guess I feel like I know both of you because I've seen, just seeing you on Instagram, looking at your posts and your resources and all that. So I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. So this is an NQT hotline. Simon came up with the titles now, not me. Don't worry, the NQTs are not going to be ringing in. They're going to be sending in, I hope, lots of different questions. So if anyone has any questions, they can pop them into the comments box and Simon will pop them up. And then I know Ciara and Grace have agreed to give away 2 of their products. I'll come to them in a minute. So if anyone makes a comment or question now, you get entered into draw for those products. So thank you very much for offering them. I'm going to start the evening off by reading, I suppose, I'll read both your bios out. I'll just introduce you to everyone or people that may not have heard of you. So we have Moonshore Grace, a graduate from Mary. Hello, Grace. Looks very studious in the background there.
A library.
Oh, it's very nice. You've been teaching for the last 3 years and your special interest is in Gaeilge, and I think everyone would see that as well as supporting substitute teachers. Grace makes high quality and innovative resources to support her fellow teachers and has lots of products on Mash.ie, Moonshore Grace, and I know your products, people always comment on how visually they just look lovely as well. So I think you will recognize Moonshore Grace from that. So she's giving away one of her newest Mash.ie, popular Mash.ie resource. It's the Subbing Essential Toolkit, and it's excellent, Grace. Well done on it. And it's definitely going to be very useful for any teacher who's going to be doing any form of subbing this year and just, needs to get an idea of, and I'm sure a lot of NQTs will be in that boat as well. So yeah, that's great. Well done on that.
Exactly. Thank you, Rozz. I feel that there can be a lot of negative stereotypes out there regarding subbing, and a lot of NQTs when they qualify from college feel a lot of pressure to get straight in, get a job for the year. You know, there may be pressure from family members or from friends saying, oh, have you got a job yet for September? And I feel that people really need to see the benefits of subbing. It can be such a fantastic experience for an NQT. I have subbed for approximately over 2 years anyway, and I've worked with junior infants to 6th class for days at a time and for weeks at a time, and I've worked in SET and ASD. And I feel this has really, really developed my confidence as an NQT. I feel now when I'm taking on my job as an EAL teacher next term, I'll be also doing Droichead, and I feel much more confident going into this with the wealth of knowledge I've built up through subbing. So I'd like to say to any NQTs out there who are subbing, please try and have a positive attitude towards this and open your mind and embrace subbing. You're going to learn so much from subbing, and I really feel it's important to highlight the benefits of subbing as an NQT.
Yeah, that's really, really good points, Grace, as well. I never would have thought of it that way. And I think that it just gives you not only the experience of teaching in different settings, but teaching in different schools with different fields and ethos and atmosphere and staff rooms, and kind of flexibility of having to be, you have to be really flexible every day, every week. Like, these are strengths that you don't learn, that are not taught in teacher training college.
Exactly. You're really honing your craft. Like, you know, it's really about practical on the job experience. And like you said, I feel like you really build up skills like classroom management, communication, working with principals. There's so many skills to gain through subbing. And if you're a bit nervous as an NQT, I think it's a fantastic way to develop your confidence and your skills.
Yeah, well, that's great. That is brilliant. Excellent. So I hope people go and check out Grace's her subbing guide there. It is really, really good and going to be really useful as well. Thank you, Grace.
Fantastic.
And then we have, I was going to say Moonshot Kira, but it's Kira's classroom. And Kira, nice to meet you. Particularly, I suppose we have an Educate Together connection. I teach in an Educate Together school, and always see an Educate Together teacher. I'm like, yeah, she's one of us. So it's great to have you on. You're teaching 3rd class, again, one of the loveliest classes. I think 3rd class, I always have a soft spot for 3rd class, and you've also taught senior infants, 1st class and SET. And I know already, I don't have to read your bio, that people know you're passionate about multicultural inclusive education, and you have some wonderful resources on that. And again, it's such a niche area. It's so needed to be getting these kind of resources from teachers that are actually teaching in classrooms and Educate Together, because, you know, the Learn Together curriculum is very specific to us and very dear to us. So it's great to have teachers like yourself doing this, Kira. So thank you. You are going to give away your conversation cards, which is your most popular resource. And thank you to anyone who comments or asks questions tonight. And I know, Grace, you're giving away a copy of one of your sub guides as well. So we are going to get started now with all these questions. The first one, and I did ask Adam it as well, and I asked Michelle in the last one, in terms of this summer and last summer, what are the feels like about going back into school? Is there any difference, or what do you think, Kira?
Personally, I think it's a little bit easier this time round. We know what to expect. I think this time last summer, we were all still in a tizzy trying to figure out, you know, how long was hand washing going to take? How many times do they need to hand sanitize? All of that. Whereas I think we have our, you know, plans made out now in terms of that. We have systems that are going to work. And yeah, I personally feel like I am a bit more confident this time round. I'm really excited to head back into 3rd class as well. And like, it's actually my first year not moving classroom. So that's super exciting.
I know, it really is a gift. Like, I'm staying in my same classroom this year. I'm teaching 5th class again, and I'm teaching with my same partner teacher from last year. So and I'm actually teaching a class that I taught in senior infants. So everything will be perfect this year. Like, Grace, what about you then? How are you feeling? I know you're starting in an Educate Together school as well.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much. I'm really excited because I'm taking on a new role as an English as an additional language EAL teacher. And this is my first time to be working as an EAL. and I'll be completing Droichead as well. So all the NQTs who are completing Droichead can follow along, and hopefully I'll share some tips and some ideas and some supports for Droichead. I'm really excited about working in an Educate Together school. I just feel that this ethos is the way forward for Ireland to become more tolerant and more inclusive society. So I can't wait to view the ethos in action, and I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, you'll love it. You'll love it. I'm only saying that because, Simon, my husband, is a principal, and then our son goes there as well. So it's a real family. I always feel as if it's my school, even though I've never taught there. But it is a great school. It's
fantastic.
You'll really enjoy it as well, Grace.
I can't wait. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Best of luck. Best of
Thank
luck.
you.
So we already have a lot of different questions coming up. I can see them here. I'm looking. Okay, so we have a question from Killian O'Suluan. And Killian says, I'm an NQT, and maybe we'll go to Grace first. And I'm wondering if Ciara or Grace have any tips for me in the first week teaching senior infants, and then we'll come back to Ciara on that. Is that okay, Grace, if you go first?
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I would say with the infant level that routines are so important. So basically setting up your routines for children entering the classroom, the routines for taking out their books, for managing resources, for lining up. There are so many routines during the day, and if you can teach them at the start and constantly reinforce them throughout the year. So I think for the first few days, of course, getting to know the children and establishing those critical routines for the year are really important steps.
Yeah, infants do like the routines, don't they?
They love it.
This is the story time, and this is the circle time. Yeah,
they like to know what to expect.
Yeah. They're funny little creatures. And Ciara, what about you? What do you think?
I'm just laughing there because you're saying about how infants love routines, and I'm like, I do too. So I guess from my point of view, I would say relationships are really, really important from the get-go. And I think just from the point of view of Killian mentioned he's an NQT as well, like, don't be worried. Everyone's been there. We've all been an NQT. Get to know the other teachers in school, and they will 100% be there for you if you need anything at all, especially if you have another teacher at your class level. So if you have, you said you have senior infants, if there's another senior infant teacher in your school, especially if there's someone maybe who was there last year as well, get to know them, ask questions. There's no such thing as a silly question. And like, I've moved schools a lot, and I still ask loads of questions at the start of the year. And that same thing applies, with your kids. Build those relationships. And there's no rush to get started into, your maths, your phonics. Build the relationships from day one, and just take that time to get to know the kids, and, let them get to know you as well. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, senior infants are great. They are a great class, though. I've kind of ended up teaching them a lot. And I also think with infants, I also see a lot of good infant teachers, and I probably do the same, is that the first morning I would have lots of kind of independent activities and tables that the children can just play with. So the emphasis is taken off you kind of standing there, and then you can get a chance to go around, Killian, kind of interact with them and get to know them one-to-one, and they're just playing with their friends at different groups. And very short and snappy for infants. So activities really short. They love clapping activities, music, chanting. They really, they do. That's not me generalizing. They really do. They love anything like that. Have a few good big books to read. I think when you settle them down after the activities, bring them up and teach them how to sit and to listen and read them in a really nice big book. There's nothing like that in the infant classroom. So those sort of practical things, if you could have ready, have a good big book and have all your activities. They'll probably be in the school that you go into as well. But senior infants are a great class. They're it is very demanding. Your energy will be stolen from you. But, they're funny. They're just funny. They're funny. So you really enjoy it.
I would just also say that Go Noodle is fantastic for the junior and senior infants because they have so much energy and it needs to be released. So basically between your lessons as a transition, use an activity like Go Noodle or get them up dancing or moving or doing something to release that energy they have. And then I find they're more focused then for the next lesson.
for another 5 minutes, and then. Ija Josephine has a question specifically about Gaeilge, so you might look at that, Grace, first, if you don't mind, and Ciara, if you have anything to contribute to it, that'd be great. So Ija trained in the UK like me as well. I trained in Wales, and she's very nervous about starting subbing, especially teaching Irish. And what will I do if I don't know how to teach the content given that the class teaches? So that's a genuine worry. I can feel the panic of that message, Ija. I feel panic now as well. So hopefully Ciara and Grace are going to solve it. Off you go.
Okay. Well, see, I would say go about CPD courses and wrongina.com, but it's coming to the stage of the year now where you mightn't have time for that. So I would say look at your resources. You need some really high quality resources to teach the teams effectively. So this is not a plug, but basically for May Féin, well, it's kind of a plug. I have a pack on May Féin that has all the essential vocabulary that you'll need to teach. And I focus on the senior end of the school. So I'm not sure what class the lady has there. Is it junior or senior end? But you need some really high quality resources with the key vocabulary the children need to learn. And there are also worksheets, board games, and interactive games. So I'd say for Gaeilge, you need to really develop a grá for Gaeilge with your children. You need to make it fun. So if you're just basically reading Gaeilge lessons from the book, they're going to fall asleep. They're not going to have a passion for the language. You need to put the same energy that you put into your other lessons into Gaeilge lessons to make it stimulating and as fun as you can. So think about interactive resources like Cúla Cathair, or even the Coláiste Lurgan songs are fantastic. So when I worked as a Kinnera in Irish College, we used to challenge children to basically put Irish words to a song that they know in English. So it could be something really similar to English, or it could be something really simple, just to put an Irish translation. So basically anything you can do to make Irish fun. Cléiche Changa, Aráníocht, Rólimert, Drámaíocht. It needs to be fun and enjoyable for the children. That would be my number one advice for making Gaeilge effective.
Yeah. And I guess if you're subbing, you could have, again, a couple of those activities. What do you think, Ciara, with you, and kind of ones that you used and thought were good with you?
Absolutely. So like I actually spent my first year out of college as a sub for that full year, and I went around from school to school and even ended up in a Gael school at one point. So I can totally relate to you in saying that it's a bit nerve-wracking at times. So what I would have done when I was subbing was I would have had some sample lessons ready to go with me, with the resources that I was going to use, some games and ideas, have those kind of as a little backup. Like from a class teacher point of view, I'll be honest, I leave lots of detailed plans for subs. If I'm out, I'm just an over planner. So I do write on them like, this is to help you if you need it. But if you want to do your own lesson, that's cool with me. Just let me know what it is so I can write it in my Kuntas Misul. So like if you have a different lesson, then that's okay. If you want to go with that, just make note of that for the teacher. And if you're going to be subbing for that teacher, let's say for a week, then you should cover some of that content. So what maybe you could do is maybe on the Monday, if you're not feeling like you've had enough time to prep what they've left for you, well, maybe on the Monday, do a different lesson, maybe focus on oral language, maybe focus on games, that kind of thing. And then Monday afternoon after school, have a look at the rest of the content that the class teacher has left and figure out how you want to go about that for the rest of the week. Like, again, if a sub went to my class and did that, I'd be very happy. So just don't put too much pressure on yourself. You'll be great.
And don't panic, because I think most class teachers are not going to be coming back analysing, did you achieve all the learning outcomes in Gaeilge? I know I wouldn't, you wouldn't, but don't panic. I think if the children have a bit of fun with Irish, even on the first day, you could, have your little activities planned and then take more time than later on to go over them, I think. But just definitely don't panic about it. You will get there, particularly with Irish, you will get there, and it's totally normal to feel that way as well. So yeah, thank you very much, Ija, for all those lovely questions. So subbing, And I suppose we're talking about subs a lot because NQTs tend to, I think these days, generally don't go into a temporary or permanent job, tend not to, that they might start off subbing for a term or subbing for a day or a week. So what type of things, I'm going to ask Kira and maybe then Grace can answer as well, what type of things does a sub need to bring with them to a school? If they had to pack a bag, what would they be packing in that bag?
Yeah, I genuinely had a subbing bag. Because with subbing, you don't always know what class you're going to be working with. You know, it might just be a case of a text message that morning and you need to get to school, or you might end up in a situation like me where I answered a sub text one time for second class, arrived to the school, and turns out it was the whole school. So I just didn't know what was going on. But make sure you just have some bits with you. In my bag, I would have always had a folder. Inside the folder, I would have had little activities that were quick, easy for me to whip out if I needed something. For example, like art lessons, they're handy. They're very handy as a sub to have prepped in advance, have your idea, then you can just whip it out if you need it. I'd be big on having a picture book as well, or multiple picture books. So you can get obviously fantastic ones for the junior end. But my personal favorite as a sub was always a little picture book called Substitute Teacher Plans by Doug Johnson. Now, I know it sounds like it's a book for subs, but it's actually a comedic kind of picture book for kids about a day when their teacher decides teacher needs a break, teacher's too tired to come into school, so teacher stays home. And teacher makes 2 lists of activities for the day. One list is what she's going to drop into school for the kids to be doing at school, and one list is what she's going to be doing herself with her lovely day off. But of course, teacher is so exhausted she actually mixes up the 2 lists and sends the wrong list into school, and the kids end up going on this amazing adventure, and teacher's at home doing her maths and her spellings, things like that. And I used that book, and I'm not even joking, junior infant seniors, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. There was so much you could do with it. And I'd have had lesson ideas prepped for each of my different subject areas. So if I needed to, I could do a whole thematic day based around this picture book.
That's great, yeah.
Things like that are really helpful as a sub. And another thing that I would say, please, 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 please get one of these. You can make it yourself. I have a version of it on Mash as well if you just want to use my one. Have some sort of a template with you that you can fill in with the details of the day. Because if someone's out sick, the class teacher needs to put that into Aladdin the next day, or if there was an accident in the yard, anything like that, like we need to know that. But you can tell us like what you got through during the day. If I left a plan and maybe you didn't get to maths, that's fine. But then it just means that I know that when I come back the next day, I might need to spend an extra couple of minutes on maths. And funnily enough, as I say, I spent my first year as a sub, and my first ever contract was the end of a maternity leave. And I got that because I had been subbing in that school for 2 days in June the previous year and had left my substitute feedback form on the desk. And the teacher was so happy with it that she mentioned it to the principal. And when the short maternity end of the maternity leave came up, the principal rang me and was like, "Our school thought you were brilliant and so organised. We loved your form. Are you available for the next 3 months?"
Yeah.
You know, so
I think you're right. I think it just shows you're thoughtful and organised to be able to care enough about the class you're with and a teacher that you can, and that stuff is definitely fed back to the principal. I know even in my school, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that's great. What about you, Grace? Now, would you believe we have about 10 minutes left? So really quickly, what are you going to put into your bag?
Similar to Kira, I would always have picture books, and I would also always have my folder with ideas and worksheets printed off for every class level. But my advice I would give to NQTs now to be more environmentally friendly and to avoid overloading folders would be to create a Padlet. So basically go on to padlet.com, create a section for every class level from junior infants up to 6th class. Start compiling resources that you like online, websites you think are interesting, maybe Intro le Cathair for Gaeilge, writing prompts like story starters, etc. Basically anything that you would like to do as a lesson as a substitute teacher, and save all these ideas to your Padlet. So then you can go into the school, you'll have lots of resources ready to go, you'll have ideas across the subject areas and across different class levels. I would definitely do that if I was subbing now, because it avoids a lot of printing, and that can be very time consuming as a sub. I would also agree with leaving notes from the substitute teacher. Like Kira said, I think that looks really impressive, and it gives a really professional, it makes you look really professional to the school that you've taken the time to write down everything you've covered. And I would always suggest to substitute teachers to make sure you correct the work that you do with the class, as it can be a bit frustrating for some teachers when they come back and they see that there's work uncorrected. So always, if you're there for a week, make sure to correct your work. Have a USB stick with ideas.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
Something that slightly gets on my nerves a bit if someone takes my class and I come back. I love when I leave the classroom, I leave it relatively tidy. I'm not a perfectionist, but I like food not to be on the floor and bits of paper most of the time now. Sometimes I might come in and the floor is horrendous. Like, I know we're not members of the cleaning staff, but definitely get the children to tidy up as much as you can, that the classroom looks relatively, it's just those sort of little things that can give a bad impression from a sub point of view. The classroom should look similar to the way it was when they come into it in the morning and when they're leaving, if they can. I know people have to be running off. So it's little things like that, isn't it? If a sub, you know, the notes on the desk, chocolates are good. I've never received any chocolates yet from the sub, but that's also good as well. I'm only joking, but no, it is little things like that, Grace, because I think it kind of shows your commitment to teaching.
Exactly. And I think you should teach you should treat substitute teaching like an ongoing interview. Basically, it's practical experience, and you're showing how professional and how committed and how organized you are as a teacher. And like Kira said, when you create a positive impression, it's going to pay off. You'll be offered more days, and you might be offered months of work or a longer contract. So treat substitute teaching like a longer ongoing interview, and always try to make a positive impression and put your best self forward.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant advice. Thank you from the two of you. And we're probably going to fit in one more question, and I guess particularly for NQTs. For the first, I still think, and I'm long ago from being an NQT, I always think the first day or two, definitely I would overplan for them, but I would have probably way more stuff, activities for the children to do, less of an emphasis of me, but that the children are actually activities either in their groups or pairs, and I overplan for that. So that would be what I think a priority for an NQT is. Now, the question is, what would you feel an NQT's priority is for their new class, their new classroom, their new class for the first few days? So they're landing in on Tuesday, the class have landed in. What's your priority?
So in terms of, like for me, my priority on Wednesday when my kids come in is going to be getting to know the kids, starting straight away to build that positive relationship and just building a positive classroom culture within the room so that everyone feels that they are a valued member of the class. And, you know, I think that's so important. So I actually do lots of activities around that during the first day and first couple of days. Like, for example, I do a display on my door and it says everyone is welcome. And then each child gets like a little speech bubble and they can write hello or welcome in a language that's important to them. That could be that they themselves speak this language at home, or maybe it's the language of a grandparent or a friend. And we decorate the door with that. And equally, I do things like I use my conversation cards that have really open-ended questions that just help the kids, you know, to share their perspectives, and I get to share my perspective on things. So yeah, I think just start by building those relationships, that positive classroom environment, because that really pays off in the long run.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you. And Grace?
I totally agree with Ciara on the importance of getting to know the children, and perhaps an easy way to do this is online for icebreaker and getting to know you activities and maybe circle time, things like that. I feel especially after with the pandemic now that well-being should be given a very big prominence in schools. So definitely place a big emphasis on well-being, SPHE, and we need to remind children and staff and parents that academics, yes, they are important, but children's social and emotional and climate. So I think definitely place a big emphasis on well-being in the classroom. There are some amazing resources out there like Weaving Wellbeing. They have some free journals for teachers. Maybe think of looking at things like yoga, mindfulness in the classroom. So I will definitely be placing a big emphasis on well-being in the first few weeks in my new role. And I think it's very important advice for all teachers across Ireland at the moment.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And I think to stay away from launching into academics and curriculum until you actually get to know the children as well, and they get a chance to kind of bond with each other again after the holidays. They are lovely. Listen, I could stay chatting to you all evening. We're going to finish up. And thank you, Grace and Ciara. It's gone really quickly, actually, this talk. And I hope that's helped lots of NQTs there, even not even NQTs, even just teachers teaching for years. Lots of really good practical advice there as well. So thank you. And check out, you have Ciara's Classroom and Mucho Grace. You're on Instagram. I presume you're on Facebook as well. And then you're on Mash, your store as well, and some brilliant resources as well. So anyone worrying about Irish there or fretting about Gaeilge knows where to go. And I look forward to see what you're going to do for the next year on Mash. And best of luck to you as well, Grace, in your new position. I hope it goes really well. And Ciara as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for giving up all your time for this. You're so good. I know it's a bit manic now this last few days. And thank you to everyone who has been watching. I'm just looking, there's a comment there. Aoife Curtin says, thanks a million, great advice. And Aoife Josephine as well said, thank you so much. And Killian, brilliant tips, thanks a million, very practical advice. So that's great to think that we've got a message out there helping other teachers. And Ciara as well said, thank you, ladies, very positive ideas and suggestions. Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone making a comment. We should put you into the draw for that. And I suppose I really want everyone, if you haven't checked out the new Mash.ie, me and Simon and other people have spent nearly a year actually revamping it and spent a lot of time kind of investing in it and making sure we have better, like fast search, and it's easier to find things, and it's also quite intuitive. So over time, Mash now will build up what kind of resources or what kind of learning activities you're interested in, and it will start showing you them first. So it becomes more intuitive the more you use it. And we've got loads of new features coming up in Mash. We're going to have vouchers coming up, gift vouchers, Mash.ie gift vouchers that hopefully we can give to each other, teacher friends or parents even. And then we're going to have a new kind of reward system and loads, like there's so many other little features that we need to have a look at in Mash and kind of release them over the next while. So we're really excited about it, really proud, and we're getting lots of comments about it. So we hope it's helping teacher sellers and teachers get hold of really good resources. So that is it. It's late. It's pitch black outside. Enjoy the last few days. And I want to say thank you so to Ciara and Grace and Adam, Michelle, Claire and Maria. Gosh, Madam, what if I forgot a name? Thank you to everyone who's been watching in. It's been a great 2 hours. It has flown by, and hopefully we'll see everyone at our next webinar. So thanks a million and good evening.
Bye.